Okay, good evening everyone. Chazak u'baruch v'chaim. Tonight's topic is insights into the Mitzvah of Tzitizit. Mitzvah of Tzitizit is something that is a very easy mitzvah to do.
Also.
And it's not?
Not for me.
No. But the truth is like this. Every mitzvah at the beginning is hard. And then over time you just get used to it. But it's wearing a piece of clothing. Like an undershirt. And you can tuck it in and no one needs to know and see. But we'll talk about it. We'll see the zechuyot that one receives. It's a cheap mitzvah, it's not expensive. And like my rabbi, we spoke about last week, we spoke about tefillin. My rabbi would tell us in class, it's like God's paying you money every second. What do you mean pay? Every single second you wear it, it's a mitzvah, 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 mitzvah. Imagine you don't have it on. Right? So all day you're in business, you're this, you're that. So a lot of times you're not doing mitzvot. You're working your head somewhere else, right? But at least you could say you have it on. You know what? God, I was doing mitzvah every second. I was doing something for you every second, right? So that's something very, very special. And that's the famous story we'll mention again. I've mentioned it probably a few times. The Gaon Mevilna on his deathbed was crying, and his students were saying, he said, and he lifted up his ציצית. And he said, this small mitzvah, which is cheap, and I get a mitzvah every single second, that's it. I'm passing away. It's going to stop. And I'm sad about that. I'm not going to read that mitzvah anymore. So it's something that is very, very precious. It's something that is every second. And as we get into it, we'll see how much more it is. Now, just to be clear on the mitzvah, the Torah tells us that if you have a four-cornered garment, then you're chayav to put it on. If you're wearing a garment that has four corners, so back in the day the style was maybe a bit different, and they had maybe types of ponchos or things like that, then you have to put tzitzit on. But technically, if you don't wear a garment with that's four corners, for instance, a jacket or a shirt doesn't have four corners on it. It has maybe the two corners, right? It's a shirt, right? On the bottom, there's no corners, yeah, or it's rounded or things like that. So technically, you don't have to wear tzitzit. But the Chachamim strongly suggest that we make ourselves obligated to put on tzitzit and wear a piece of clothing that has four corners, which is the tzitzit that you can buy in the stores nowadays. Meaning, the original halacha was if you wear a four-cornered garment, then you must put tzitzit on it, and it's asur to wear if you don't have tzitzit on. That's why if you see the long coats that some rabbis wear, they're called a frock, and in the back they have a big slit going up. In the front it's like a suit, and in the back it's also like a suit, but it's like a big slit. Now, if the front is cornered, the two fronts are cornered, and if the back two are cornered, then you got a four-cornered garment, right? And with a big split in the middle, which is like you see four corners. So the truth is, if you notice, one of the four in the back is rounded. So therefore, if it's rounded, it's not a corner, and it's not obligated in tzitzit, because if you have a corner, then you must put tzitzit on it. So they do it that way, so that this big, it's absolved of the mitzvah of tzitzit. They wear their own tzitzit under them, that is fulfilling the mitzvah of tzitzit. But that's the only one that I know of that could face that problem. But anyways, the Chachamim they're strong advocates for putting yourself in that situation to get that mitzvah every second and to wear the tzitzit. So much so that is a strong lashon, but the Gemara tells us that be'idan deritcha, at times of anger, that if Hashem is angry with the world, then the first place it will go to is people that have the ability to do easy mitzvot and they don't do it. And one of the examples given is ציצית. It's an easy mitzvah, and if you don't do it, then it's too itchy.
I can't do it.
Why not?
I got every kind of ציצית. I can't do it.
Why not?
I don't know why.
You wear a shirt?
No.
Me too. I don't wear. I
try every
I put on Shabbat. My second Shabbat is over.
Yeah, get it off.
I can't breathe.
Biggest test I have.
The cotton one, like the t-shirt one?
I have everything. I have wool. I have
I have the t-shirt.
No, they have that
I have
soft
the linen
one.
and I bought it like a white Peter t-shirt underneath. Oh yeah, it's
The t-shirt, one t-shirt one's just like wearing a t-shirt.
Same like t-shirt.
What's the
I
problem?
don't wear a t-shirt.
Pumpy.
So who cares? So wear a t-shirt.
I don't
Everyone wears a
I don't wear
t-shirt.
it.
I know. Look, every mitzvah at the beginning takes in putting on kippah, keeping Shabbat, keeping kosher. Everything at the beginning it's hard, right? If Bezrat Hashem you have the zechut, hopefully the zechut of the shiur, when you do it again and again and again, you'll feel it's like part of you. Bezrat Hashem, we'll all get to that. Okay, so now let's look at the mitzvah of tzitizit, and we'll learn some deep insights into it. First of all, the Torah tells us in Shema, that's where the tzitizit is located, the mitzvah of tzitizit, Uzchartem et kol mitzvotai, that when we see the tzitizit, we'll remember all of the mitzvot. We have to recognize that the function of tzitizit, besides for being a mitzvah in itself, that Hashem wants us to do this, is it's a reminder mitzvah. Some people would sometimes, let's say they're talking to someone or they're giving a class and something popped in their head, need to remind themselves about something. In order to write it, they'll make for them like a little sign. They'll tie something, they'll put something in their pocket, or they'll do something. And many times you put something else in your, like a tissue randomly in your pocket, so you know that later on, why is this tissue? Oh yeah, so I remember to do something. Tzitizit is a reminder to do the mitzvot. Function as well, because it says uschartem kol mitzvotai. When you see it, you will remember all the mitzvot. Uritem oto uschartem kol mitzvotai. When you see it, then you'll be reminded of it. That's a part of the argument of keeping the tzitizit out, to see it. Those that say you can put it in is because I see it in the morning, I see it at night, right? So that's okay with those that hold that. But the function is that when you see it, it reminds you of the mitzvot. And the famous understanding here is all the mitzvot are hidden in tzitizit, as Rashi tells us in Chumash, that the numerical value of the word tzitizit is 600. Tzadik is 90, Yud is 10, it's 100. The next Tzadik is 90, Yud is 10, it's a total now 200, and Taf is 400, that's total 600. Plus the 8 strings and 5 knots, 613. So 613 mitzvot is hidden in the mitzvah of tzitizit. Now, the tzitizit it's a piece of clothing, right? Now, clothing influences a person. Now you say, I was at the Or Chaim Shabbaton this week, and actually we had a different conversation, different groups with different classes, and actually tzitizit came up, and I'm like, Rabbi, what are you wearing tzitizit for? Besides, Torah says so, but what's what's going on with it? So part of the answer is sometimes what you wear, it defines who you are. Imagine a person who's a businessman. He really wants to get in there with the high class guys, and he wears a $5 watch. When you're at a meeting and they see a $5 watch, this guy's not a millionaire. We're going to invest with this guy. We're going to trust him with all our millions. So then you drive like a beat up car. There's things like that in the world where if you dress the part, even if you're not there, you fit into the part. Or even in the Torah, sometimes on the outside, if you dress that way, even if you're not there, it'll help you. That's the concept of Gemara. Chitzoniyut me'oreret pnimiyut. Sometimes the outer things, they wake up the inner. So sometimes the outer, when we wear a kippah, we wear a tzitzit, we wear Shabbat nice clothes, we wear a talit, etc., then it wakes up our inner part of us. Right? So that's also one of the functions of tzitzit. That it is a clothing, and clothing affects us. More on this point is as follows. When Adam and Chava were created, the Torah tells us they didn't have clothing. They were created with no clothing, and they went around like that with no clothing. Until after the sin, then they put on clothing. The first time clothing was introduced was after the Chet of Adam Rishon. So clothing, it's now we have our body could do sins. The sin was introduced to the world by Adam and Chava. Clothing covers that. Clothing hides that. Now, so clothing is a kind of a protection. This protection is another elevated level above animals. Animals don't wear clothing. So clothing is something now also spiritual, that when I put on clothing, I'm distancing myself from being an animal. Now, a human being, as we've spoken about many times, is flesh and neshama. We have animalistic parts to us, and we have spiritual parts. And our function is trying to wean ourselves away from the animalistic parts and indulges and and what's the word I'm looking for? Animalistic instincts that we might have, and become more spiritual. Part of that is clothing, where I say, look, I'm not an animal, I wear clothing, I cover myself, I'm different than an animal. Tzitzit, one of the explanations of tzitzit is fringes. It's like an extension of clothing, meaning even goyim wear clothing, right? But when I put on tzitzit, I put on an extra layer of clothing, a spiritual clothing, a clothing that Hashem wants me to wear. This is further removing me from the animal. So another reminder of when I wear tzitzit is, this is my purpose, is further removing myself from my body and my animal instincts, but be closer to the spiritual side. We'll get to another point on this, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, we said that the Mitzvah of Tzitzit, it's to remind us of the mitzvot. Now, just to go off a little bit, when we remind ourselves of the mitzvot, what does that mean? Let's give an example. There was a king that he hosted a very big seudah, and he invited the entire village. Everyone came, and they were sitting around, had a beautiful meal. And the king had beside him a little bell, and he went ding, 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 ding. And all of a sudden, servants came in and cleaned up the whole table and brought the dessert and everything. Wow. Ding, 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 ding. Then what happens is they come again and they take away the dessert and they give everybody like a little present before leaving. So someone in the crowd was like, wow, that's an amazing bell. I'm going to go buy myself a bell like that. He goes home. He goes to Home Depot and he buys himself a bell. He goes to his wife. He's him and his wife at home. He says, look what I got. This amazing thing. Let's watch. He said, bell. Ding, 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 ding. And he's expecting now people to come in to bring. So the wife said, what are you doing? What is this? So obviously, this is connected to the servants, to everything around. It's not on its own, right? So to the part of the remembrance of the mitzvot, it only reminds you of the mitzvot if you know the other mitzvot, and if you learn about the other mitzvot. So part of tzitzit tells us, look, be knowledgeable, try being knowledgeable in the other mitzvot. So when you wear that tzitzit, you have that appreciation for the tzitzit, say, wow, this is a reminder to do the other mitzvot, and I know what those other mitzvot are. And now, this also connects us with as follows. The parasha of Tzitzit is mentioned in the Torah at the end of Parashat Shalach Lecha. And we know in the Torah there are many mitzvot in the Torah, and they're strung together. What is placed here, what's placed beside, and there's always the question asked, why is this mitzvah placed beside this story, or this mitzvah placed beside this mitzvah? The parasha of Tzitzit is at the end of Parashat Shalach Lecha. What's right before it talks about tzitzit? It talks about the person, the mekoshesh etzim. The mekoshesh etzim was a person in the midbar, in the desert, that gathered wood on Shabbat, and that was a sin on Shabbat. And unfortunately, it was a sin on Shabbat. Unfortunately, it received the death penalty for sinning on Shabbat. Now, the next thing it talks about is tzitzit. So what's the question? What's the connection between this mekoshesh etzim and Shabbat? What's the connection between the two? The person that gathered the twigs and what's the connection between the person that gathered the twigs and tzitzit? What's the connection between the two? It must be, says the Mefarshim, that he wasn't wearing tzitzit. Because if he was wearing tzitzit, he would have remembered the mitzvot, he would have remembered that it was Shabbat, and he would have done it. Yeah. So therefore, the connection there is I think it's the Kli Yakar that points out this connection. I think so. I think it's the Kli Yakar.
Well, I was reading what Rabbi Kaplan was saying. If you have a mezuzah, tefillin, and tzitzit, you're guaranteed not to sin.
That because each one of these are reminders. Very good. And that's when we're approaching Chanukah.
If you do, you're going to
right?
Then you got a problem.
We're approaching Chanukah, and that's also part of it, where you have, we'll show a little bit more about this topic, but when you have, right, that's the thing, it's all at the same time, it's even stronger, and even stronger is the menorah, because the menorah in certain times is placed at the left side of the door, the right side of the door is the mezuzah, and you walk in with your tzitzit on, it's amazing, right? It's hard to walk in with your tzitzit and tefillin because the menorah is on at night, and you're not supposed to wear tefillin at night. But anyway, that's why it says it omits tefillin in that situation. But all these things are also all reminders. Tefillin, mezuzah, why do we have on every single door? To remind me all the time. Every time I walk into places, walk out of places, remind me. Okay, gotta be on my best behavior, gotta do things. And we're so far from that, but that's why we need a lot of reminders. What can we do? That's why we have Zecher L'Tziat Mitzrayim every single day. We mention Azer Shir Moshe, we mention this, because we need reminders. We're human, and we forget, and we get accustomed, etc. But when we stop and think for a moment, this mezuzah on the wall, tzitzik that I'm wearing, wow, the mezuzah, the Zecher L'Tziat Mitzrayim I mention all the time for emunah. We're supposed to have these reminders, supposed to somehow ring those bells in us. The Mefarshim say that this is the Gemara Masechet Menachot that tells us that tzitzit is 4 corners, and we said that tzitzit connects to all 630 mitzvot. And in the 630 mitzvot, there's 2 types of mitzvot: mitzvot aseh, mitzvot lo ta'aseh. Mitzvot to do things, put on tefillin, put on tzitzit, do this, do that, and mitzvot lo ta'aseh, don't kill, don't steal, etc. To mitzvot aseh, mitzvot lo ta'aseh. So it's 4 corners. The tzitzit is 4 corners because each group is 2 witnesses. I have 2 tzitzit as 2 witnesses that are you doing the mitzvot aseh, and 2 witnesses in the back are you refraining from the lo ta'aseh. So these 4 are like 4 witnesses, 2 for the mitzvot aseh, 2 mitzvot lo ta'aseh. So that also gets us into the mode of when I see the tzitzit, I remember what the function of the tzitzit is. Now in the same, we say every day in Shema, in the same parasha of the tzitzit, part of the tzitzit is lo tatura acharei levavchem acharei einechem. That when we connect to the mitzvah of tzitzit, we will have that segula, because there it's a different avera of you're not supposed to follow your eyes and follow your hearts to see immorality, to see bad things, because that could get you, right, by watching immorality, it could get you to do it. So part of tzitzit is look at the tzitzit, and that will make you do mitzvot, and that will get you away from looking at bad things. So tzitzit has a zechut of getting a person away from immorality. There's a famous story in the Gemara about this concept, but we won't get into that right now. But it's again just a segula to get a person away from immorality is the tzitzit. That's it says in the pasuk. This pasuk is said. Some people say it by Sefirat HaOmer. Ote or kasalma note shamayim kairiya. Ote or kasalma. Salma, the same letters as simla. Simla is a clothing. Ote or kasalma. I wear my salma and I have light. Says I think it's the Zohar HaKadosh that says that this. What's a beged that has light? That's tzitzit. And it has a special aura, has a special spiritual light. That's our holy beged that Hashem wants us to wear. And that pushes away the tumah. You wear that, it's a protection, and it pushes away the tumah. It says the Arizal that part of the zechut of tzitzit as well protects a person from getting angry. Why? Because the word kas, chaf ayin samech, chaf is 20, ayin is 70, that's 90, samech is 60, 90 and 60 is 150. 150, it's the same numerical value as the word kanaf. Arba kanfot, corners. Kanaf is chaf is 20, nun is 50, it's 70, and pei is 80. 70 and 80 is 150. So kas and kanaf is the same lashon. So the Arizal says, if you think you're going to get angry, hold on to your tzitzit. And that will counter your anger and it will calm you down. So part of his zechut, the person knows he has his Moroccan-ness in him, right? So a part of the zechut is to notice the tzitzit, to hold on to the tzitzit. And this as well is an explanation that goes as follows. What happens is as follows. This now it gets to a deeper point. That Yosef HaTzadik, we're going to see it in the upcoming parashiyot, that the brothers unfortunately sell him. He goes down to Mitzrayim, he becomes second in command. Eventually his brothers come, etc., etc. He openly reveals himself, I'm Yosef. And the brothers now are shocked, like, oh my gosh, we feel so embarrassed, this and that, whatever. Then Yosef says, you know what? Go get your father and bring him, get our father Yaakov Avinu. I'm going to take care of him here in Egypt. There's a famine in Eretz Canaan. I want to take care of him here. And then he tells them, Al tirgizu badarich, but don't get upset on the way or when you're traveling. What is he saying? Don't get upset when you're traveling, right? So one explanation is, what's going to happen the entire travel when they go back home? They're going to blame it on each other. I told you we shouldn't have sold him. You should have sold him. I told you shouldn't have this and that, right? So the brothers amongst themselves are going to start fighting, right? Altir gezu baderech. Yosef Atzadik tells them, don't fight along the way. He says in Mefarshim, he says, hold on to the tzitizit. As we said, that Arizal says, the gematria of kas is the same gematria as kanaf, arba kanfot. So the zechut of tzitzit can also protect you from getting angry. He says, Altir gezu baderech, don't get angry when you guys get back. Hold on to your tzitzit, and that will protect you from not getting angry and blaming each other. Who sold Yosef? Why did you sell Yosef? Etc. And to add to this, and that's why there's a connection to this story to tzitzit, is because the numerical value, the gematria, this is points out in Rabbi Chaim Palaji, of the words Altir gezu badarech is the same gematria as the words arba tzitzit. So when Yosef HaTzadik told his brothers, don't get angry when you guys travel back to get Yaakov Avinu, because you guys are going to probably argue, who was the one that sold Yosef? I told you shouldn't have done it, you should have done it like this, you shouldn't have done it like that, whatever. Arba tzitzit. Hold on to your arba tzitzit, and that will avoid you getting angry. Now we know nothing is for no reason. The 8 strings for a reason. 8 strings, we know, is lamala min hateva, is above nature. 7, the number 6 is nature. 7 is nature, but spirituality going into the nature. For instance, Shabbat is that spiritual. So 6 is nature. 6, that the world is created in 6 days. There's 6 directions, up, north, south, east, west, up and down. So it's physical. Shabbat, 7th day, 7 is the component that unifies, that really makes up the 6, is that 7th. So that's Shabbat, that injects that spirituality into the 6. That's even though we have something physical, we go deep into it with the microscope, we see that there's molecules, there's things moving there that can't be explained. That's the life to everything. That's the 7. 8 is the Mala Min HaTeva. 8 is above nature. Chanukah, the Mitzvah of Chanukah is 8, because that was above nature, that oil lasts that long, etc. Brit Milah is above nature. It's the brit between us and Hashem, plus the I'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, coagulant, the blood, it clots on the strongest day that it clots is on the 8th day. L'mala min hateva, above nature. The Torah is above nature because it was given on Shavuot, which is 7 times 7, 49 days. The 8th day above that, the 50th day is Shavuot. So it's all l'mala min hateva, above nature. So too, tzitzit has 8 strings. It could get you, with your connection to tzitzit, your proper connection to tzitzit, you could arise above the animalistic levels that you've been on and get above your your nature. Now, the Ben Ish Chai adds over here that, so how do I get above my nature? Because again, we have 8 strings and we have 5 knots. How do I get above my nature? With the 5. What's 5? Chamisha Chumshir Torah, right? We sing that song of Pesach. That's also now we're talking about it. Right? We say Echad Miodea, Echad Elokenu, right? 1. What's 1? Everybody knows what the number 1 is. What are you asking me for? No, the answer is Echad Miodea. Who knows what 1 is? Meaning, who knows when I see the number 1? What am I supposed to think of as a Jew? Echad Elokenu. There's only one God. Shtaim Miodea. Who knows what the number 2 means? 2. Well, what does that mean? Everybody knows the number 2 is 2. 1 and 1 is 2. No, when I see the number 2, what is that supposed to mean? Shtaim shte luchot habrit, right? So number 5, chamisha chamisha Torah. When I see number 5, that means Torah. So he says, how do you want to get l'mala min hateva? How do you want to get to 8? How do you want to get 8 to level 8 above nature? That's through the 5 knots. The 5 knots is through the Torah. And the Ben Ish Chai adds as follows. He says you have 8 strings, you have 5 knots. That's 13 times 4, because that's only on one side. Times 4, 13 times 4 is 52. 52 is the numerical value of the word ben, like a son. Bet is 2, nun is 50, 52. You want to have a zechut with your children, is tzitzit also. The zechut of tzitzit will also help you, as the Ben Ish Chai. if you're careful with tzitzit, it'll also be a protection for you, but a protection for your children as well. What? We gotta put them on, huh?
Go now.
You know you don't want to come to this class, huh? Good thing tzitzit is only in daytime, so you don't have to rush home right now. Put them on. We'll give you till tomorrow morning.
Also at nighttime you don't have to have them on?
So technically nighttime, because it says uritem oto, you have to see them, and daylight is a time of seeing. So technically, only
You have to
daytime.
see them. Show them?
No, you have to see them.
What does that mean?
So what does that mean? So the meaning of it is seeing it in order to remember. Uritem oto is chartem, seeing it in order to remember.
When they're under your clothes, you don't see it.
Right, but so that's what the poskim say. But you saw it before you put it on. You saw it before you put it on. So
Yeah,
it's
but if it's
considered
dark, you
seeing.
still know you still know.
Well, my
it's there.
son
But
wears it to sleep.
technically, yeah. So somewhere to see. But technically, the Shulchan Aruch actually writes. We don't follow Shulchan Aruch in this way. We follow the Arizal. But Shulchan Aruch writes that tzitzit, because of the whole clothing is supposed to be on the outside, not just the strings. That's why if you see some Hasidim, they have a shirt and then they put tzitzit on top of the shirt. Like the actual tzitzit is on top of the shirt, right? That's what are these guys doing? They're actually following Shulchan Aruch's ruling.
I can
But
handle
we,
I can handle that.
Is that in that case?
I don't know, but we follow the Arizal where it should be in. And then there's a machloket with the Arizal. Does it mean everything in, or it means only the beged and the tzitzit are out? That's the big controversy. So therefore, tzitzit should be out, tzitzit shouldn't be out. Right? That's a different thing right there.
Right, but what about
But at nighttime, technically, it's high. But you could what?
what about hiding the strings?
The strings.
Because
So that's a good
Yeah,
question,
honest with
right? That's a good
helps
question.
a
What?
They have to be modest by being them tucked in.
Yeah, the goyim.
No, so there is that.
no, not for that reason, just
So-
more comfort.
What do you know? You don't wear nothing.
No, I have tons of them. I wear Shabbat.
Look, do you have to wear them out? You don't have to wear them out. You have to wear them in.
Tuck them in.
Sfaradim,
No, no.
that's a whole issue.
Tuck the strings in.
Into your pants.
No.
Tuck
There's
them
a
away.
little pocket. There's a little pocket.
There's a
there.
little pocket on the corners. You'll tuck the strings in so they don't bother your legs.
Oh no! Technically, tzitzit could touch your legs. It's
I know they could, but I don't like that feeling.
so you want to
tuck it in.
Okay, so you can do
You're a
that.
complicated guy, huh?
So you can do that. You can do
Yeah,
that.
it's
That's
fine,
fine.
right? Because a lot of
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Okay.
Now, can I ask about the nighttime thing?
Yeah. So
Are you supposed to take them off or just leave it? And let's say like you take a shower, can you put it back on after?
Take a shower tomorrow.
if you take them off and now you want to put them back on at night,
No, let's say you take it off. You don't put it back on.
yeah.
That's it.
If you take it off, thank you. So that's the thing with tzitzit is as follows: is just like a talit when you're in shul. Let's say you take off your talit and you need to use the restroom, so you know you're coming back to put it on. You don't need to say a new bracha. But let's say, for instance, whatever you thought shul ended, and you took off your talit and you folded it, whatever, and you're like, oh, musaf, like, oh, I totally forgot, and you want to put it back on. You need a new bracha. Also, like, let's say you go and you play sports with your tzitzit on, and now you want to take a shower. And you're it's a bit sweaty, so you want to change your tzitzit, right? The same day, it's all daytime still, right? So you would need to make a new bracha.
But if you're playing a sport, do you need to keep it on?
So now, again, if it could be, some say yes, some say no. The whole thing of have to also is tzitzit anyways is like we said, it's like the proper thing to do. So some people take it off because they know
If
it's
you're doing something dirty, if you're sweating.
But you,
right. So you can
you
take it off.
mentioned you don't say bracha letzitzit.
So if
What?
if you're fishing all day and it's hot, I'm serious.
If you're fishing all
I
day,
fish
it's
all
on.
day. We fish
Right.
10 hours in a
Right.
day. And we're sweating and the mosquito repellent and all this stuff is going on. Do you have to keep it on?
Look, it's the right thing to do, but if there's
Are
things
you
like if
giving
you're
respect
swimming,
are you
Yeah.
giving respect to your tzitzit?
look if
Where
you
worms and fish and
Really
mosquito
sweatful.
repellent. I mean,
Right.
Yeah, but you're taking it
yeah,
to the
but
washroom.
are you wearing clothes? You're wearing a shirt. You're not in bathing suits. I mean, if you're in bathing, maybe you're in bathing
You
suit.
gotta speedo.
Fishing is-
I heard.
I don't know how Spanish Moroccans feel, but it's very fun.
I heard that in some cases, when a person goes to the washroom, for example, my uncle told me that you should nullify your tzitzit by tying a knot. I don't know.
I heard
Everybody
that.
asked, said they never heard that.
I never heard that
before.
also. But what I did hear, the Ben Ish Chai writes this, and many write this. If you go to the bathroom number one, you go to the bathroom fine. But But number two, we don't want to get the tzitzit with no, we don't want to get things dirty. So you can take it off,
Yeah.
or you can roll it up and fold it in to make sure that it's thing. But if you preferably maybe even take it off, right?
Yeah.
So that's in that case.
They say one of the reasons that they didn't wear them in Morocco was because he said you're not allowed to wear them in the washroom. So instead to take it on and off and on and off,
They wouldn't wear
it
it.
all.
Oh wow. Wow.
I'm with him.
Well, yeah. So like this. So he's bringing a good point regarding the bracha of tzitzit. Sfaradim, we don't say a bracha on tzitzit in the morning when we put it on. We don't say, because the bracha that we put on for our talit, that covers the tzitzit. But then, so later on, if you change it in the day,
Which one is first? You do
Yeah.
the bracha thinking that I'm going to do tzitzit later on,
yeah,
and that counts.
yeah. Meaning, I put on my tzitzit, I don't say no bracha, nothing. Even though the tzitzit's on, then when I do the talit, it'll go back
But
on.
if you
to
talk
that
in the
tzitzit.
meantime, you're
Yes, it's still. Yeah.
It's like eating an apple without doing a bracha.
You already did that thing. Not sure how it works. You're right, because your tzitzit's already on.
It's easy on. It's like to say, it's like like doing the motzi. You do the same thing. I'm gonna eat bread and then I'll wash later and then a bracha later.
Bracha later on. How did that work exactly? You're right. I'll have to look into it. Good question. But that's the way it goes. That you put on your tzitzit in the morning, don't say bracha. When you put on your litat tzitzit, that bracha covers your tzitzit.
If you didn't have a chance to put a talit during the day, let's say,
You didn't have a chance.
then you lost the bracha, right?
I don't know what to do in that case. Let's say it's almost nighttime, and now you say a bracha now. Not sure.
Does that mean that you
Yeah.
can't say a bracha on the
tzitzit, it
tzitzit?
seems like according to Sfaradim, we don't.
Oh, so you just wait for the talit.
For the talit. Wait for the talit.
Put talit every day because you put tefillin.
Yeah.
No?
You put talit every day, even
Oh,
Shabbat, etc. Right.
Oh, you don't.
So like this,
But
the
fasting.
fasting, we wear talit. Right? We wear talit every day, except for when Tisha B'Av, we wear talit in the
You're on a
afternoon.
plane,
We wear talit in the afternoon, right?
It's a long way.
Yeah.
you have a
Totally.
tzitzit on, maybe it's easier.
The Zohar says tzitzit is mentioned in the parasha, the same parasha as mezuzah, right? Tzitzit is like in Shema. So what happens is in our mezuzah it mentions tzitzit, but obviously there's no tzitzit in the mezuzah. But what happens is when I walk by mezuzah with my tzitzit on, you're like strengthening the mezuzah that's there. Meaning, this is what the Zohar says, because in the parasha of mezuzah, it talks about mezuzah, and that's why we use that parasha in our current mezuzah. But in there, it also talks about tzitzit. But tzitzit is not in a mezuzah; it's a mezuzah. So, but when we walk by our mezuzah with tzitzit on, you're strengthening the words that are in that mezuzah that talk about tzitzit, and that's why it says bedorotam. Bedorotam is the same words as dira. Dira means a home. Mezuzot are protection of our home. So when you're wearing that tzitzit, not only are you getting that mitzvah, but you're strengthening the home as well. You're strengthening that protection of the home when your tzitzit are on with your mezuzah in the home. There is actually a Zohar that says whenever one kisses the tzitzit during Shema, and he puts it over his eyes and kisses it, it's a segula, that person's not going to go blind. So it's a very big thing. When a person kisses the tzitzit, puts it over his eyes and kisses the tzitzit, it's a segula that he won't go blind. And like we said, it's protection, so you don't need to wear it at night, but some do if they want to, and they can leave it on at night, and like some sort of extra protection.
Well,
Some do, some
it
don't.
prevents bad dreams.
Some bad dreams, some do, some don't.
Bad way.
Right?
Bad wife, bad
But
dreams.
to leave it on,
Bad
right?
food.
To leave it on, yeah. Not to put it back on, right. To leave it
Bad
on.
Moroccan
Yeah.
friends,
So now there is the concept of techelet. Techelet is in the Torah as well. Petit techelet, right? That one of the strings is a blue string, a special blue dye from a special type of fish, etc. And as follows: that blue string is an extra to the mitzvah, meaning it's like a separate mitzvah. We have the mitzvah of tzitzit, and we have the mitzvah of petit techelet. So nowadays we don't have the techelet, right? According to some, according to us, we'll talk about that in a moment. But you still fulfill the mitzvah with the regular strings, without the techelet. You still fulfill the mitzvah. Techelet, the Gemara tells us, it's blue. It reminds us of the sky, that same color. That's the sky, reminds us of Kisei HaKavod, reminds us of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it's the same point over here. When I see the tzitzit, it reminds me of the mitzvot. When I see this teched, it reminds me of Hashem. Hashem that commanded me the mitzvot. So here as well, it furthers me away from the animal that we talked about, and it connects me further to the tachlit, which actually is the same words as the same letters as techelet. Techelet is the word tachlit. Tachlit means purpose. What's our purpose in life? See the tzitzit, that's the mitzvot. When I see the blue strand, then it reminds me of Hashem, and that's the techelet.
Where does techelet come from?
So that's the thing. So it comes from a fish.
No, I
Fish,
understand.
right?
Who told us to put this blue string?
Hashem.
It's
It's
in the
from
Torah.
Torah.
You tell me when but if Hashem would have said to you, if you would have said that Hashem said, you see the tzitzit, you think of Hashem because 613 means what? You don't need another reminder to think of the blue string to think of Hashem again.
No, so mitzvot means commandments. So there's God, there's Hashem, and there's His commandments. Like, and God commands us. So when I see the 613, I see the 613 mitzvot. The techelet reminds me of Hashem that commanded me those mitzvot. Is it redundant? It's the same thing, the same point, but two small differences. This is Hashem, I'm reminding myself, the Kisei HaKavod, Hashem Almighty, and His commandments. So, and that's the tachlit. Techelet, the word tachlit. It's our purpose. Now as follows. There was a rabbi named the Rebbe of Rozhin, and he in the late 1800s made it his mission to try finding the techelet, try finding this chilazon. It's described as some sort of worm, some that had like a really dark blood, and when it would go on wool, it would turn into blue. And in short, he found an octopus type of fish called the cuttlefish. He found this in Naples, Italy. And this cuttlefish shot out a certain type of ink that looked almost black, but when you put that on wool, it looks like dark blue. And he concluded that it was the techelet. Some were for him, some were against, as a lot of these things are, because there are sources that say that only the Mashiach will reveal to us the techelet, right? And when he passed away in the late 1800s, then things kind of died down. Things kind of went up again, right? But again, it's not a guarantee. Is it the one? Is it not the one? So we remain without it, because there could be problems if you're putting it on and it's not the right one. It could be problematic. So most just keep it without. But over here, we see something very phenomenal. This rabbi, right or wrong, he put a lot of effort and money and time into finding this. And we said before that just like we see nowadays, we wear the tzitzit without the techelet, and we're still, of course, fulfilling the mitzvah of tzitzit. Techelet is like an extra. For this extra, this rabbi dedicated his life. So, it's an extra thing on the mitzvah of tzitzit. And you see how great it is. So this Rebbe, this great rabbi, put so much time and effort into the extra zechut of techelet. All the more so, we should try putting an extra effort into tzitzit. And now, let me show you how the whole point of tzitzit, how we got tzitzit, where's the source? Of course, the Torah tells us, but why do we have the zechut of having tzitzit? That comes from extra effort as well. As we know the story that in Parashat Noach comes out of the Teva, and he plants, deeper explanations, but in short, he plants a vineyard, he drinks from the grapes, and he gets drunk. Something happens there, and he's not dressed properly. His son Cham tells his two brothers, Shem and Yefet, and they come running, holding on to a blanket, running backwards so they don't see their father like that, and they cover their father. Shem is rewarded with tzitzit. Yefet is rewarded with, at a later period of time, that his descendants are going to be buried, also like a covering. So the question is asked: tzitzit is like for generations, all Jews are commanded to tzitzit. Every second is a mitzvah. It's unbelievable. Basically, he was zochet to the Jewish nation from that action. Yefet, it's like a one-time thing that group got buried. So what was the difference? Chachamim say that Shem, he was the one that really put the main effort into doing this mitzvah of covering his father and not lessening the honor of his father. And Yefet came along. So that extra effort from Shem, he got the mitzvah of tzitzit. So the whole tzitzit came from this extra effort of Shem. Talks about that's the extra effort that this rabbi made for the Techelet. But also comes to show us that Shem did this extra effort for Tzitzit, for what? The kibud ava'em of his father. To honor his father. So what was he zocheh? He covered his father with a blanket to not lose the honor of his father. So what did Hashem say? Hashem said, you know what? I'm going to give you a clothing of honor as well. And the clothing of honor is tzitzit. And now we could connect the tzitzit as a clothing of honor. Imagine you get invited to the Queen of England. For some reason, they want you to come, VIP. And you go there, and you spend a day with her, or whatever it was, and you meet with her, and she gives you a pin. A special pin that only certain people in the world have. 500 people in the world, 1,000 people in the world, a special pin, the Queen of England. You would wear that pin on your lapel, every suit. You take it off and put it on the next suit. You wear it all the time. This is your badge of honor, right? So we have to recognize that the tzitzit is our honorable clothing. That Hashem gave this to us. Hashem, He did it to honor His Father. Here's my honorable clothing. I want you to wear it. This is the clothing that we have that Hashem wants us to wear, right? And this is the tzitzit. We're wearing royal clothing. Imagine Hashem gives us royal clothing. Are we going to wear it every day? Are we going to wear it every moment? That's the value of the tzitzit. Ending off. Before I end off, I heard this story. I wish I saw it again today, but I heard it before. There's a Syrian Jew. His name is Al. I forget his last name. The story goes as follows. That Al was having bad dreams. And the dream kept on repeating that him and his wife are going to be driving in a car. It looked like a nice car off of a highway in an interesting area he didn't know. And in his dream he couldn't make it out. But in the dream he always fell off the cliff and died. And he would have this dream over and over again. And it was really bothering him. He went to his local rabbi. He said, Rabbi, I don't know what's going on. I have a dream that I'm driving and I fall off a cliff and I die. And then I wake up. Every dream. I have it often. So the rabbi told him, look, do you wear tzitzit? He said, no. For some reason the rabbi told him, wear tzitzit. It's a protection. And Bezrat Hashem, the zechut of tzitzit, hopefully this will never happen to you. The story goes that a few months later, or whatever it was, this actually happened to him. That he was driving the street and he had that major deja vu. Like, oh my gosh, this is the dream. And here's the cliff. And oh my gosh, and this car spins out of control. And instead of dying, he almost fell off the cliff. And he got spared. And he recognized and he felt that it was because his rabbi told him to wear the tzitzit. And he had his tzitzit on. And he felt that the dream didn't come to the conclusion that he was seeing in his mind because of the tzitzit. This is a story it's brought down in books. I read it once before. The what's it called? This is the zechut of tzitzit. So before ending, I strongly suggest those that don't wear it to wear it, as it's a mitzvah every single second. Hashem's paying you, another mitzvah that you get for wearing the tzitzit, right? And now just to end off, we always say that when a person passes away, he doesn't take anything with him. He doesn't take nothing with him. He takes his mitzvot, he takes his Torah learning, his good deeds, etc. He doesn't take nothing. He can't take a $5 bill with him. He doesn't take nothing with him. But you know what? There is one mitzvah that he carries with him. What is it? He's actually wrapped in a talit. Yeah. He's wrapped in a talit. And why is he wrapped in a talit? Because after Bezrat Hashem soon, when there's Techiyat HaMetim, the Jewish nation is going to come up, and what are they going to be dressed in? Their talit. The talit, that identifies us as a Jew. That is our clothing, right? So we want to wear that clothing, not just when we pass away. We want to do it now. And there's a story that goes that where a rabbi tried to tell his community about the concept of tzitzit, talit, and when you go on vacation, don't leave your talit and tefillin behind. Take it with you, etc. And the story goes that he gave an example to his community, and he said, "My dear community, I went to shul the other day, and I heard this voice, a voice crying and crying, and he made it out to like a real story. He said, this voice was crying and crying. I was trying to figure out where did it come from. And he says, and I see the talit bag. The talit bag was crying, and people were like, what are you talking about? Talit was crying. And he said, the talit started talking to me. He says, my master went on vacation and left me here behind. And and I'm crying. Why did he leave me behind? He had enough room to take his fishing pole. He took enough room to take all his clothing, his bathing suits, his this, and he leaves me behind. He says, "Don't worry, he'll be wearing you for eternity after 120 years, right?" But we don't want that. We want to wear the talit and have this mitzvah of tzitzit throughout our lives. And for those that already, Baruch Hashem, have this mitzvah, add to the mitzvah. Not only just have one pair for Shabbat as well. Just we have special Shabbat clothes. When it comes to Chagim, we buy a new pair of shoes, we buy a new shirt, a new suit, buy a new tzitzit also. There's a new bag. Have one for Shabbat, have one for the week. Make sure it's kosher. A lot of times people have the beautiful suit. They buy Rosh Hashanah, beautiful suit, and they wear their talit that's from the Bar Mitzvah, right? So we should have a new tzitzit, new talit. Right? Try doing things the best way possible. B'ezrat Hashem, we connected this amazing mitzvah of tzitzit, which is connected to kol mitzvot, because it has the gematria. It's connected to all the mitzvot. Our Chachamim say, right? So kol mitzvotai. We see this. It reminds us of all the mitzvot. It's a very, very powerful mitzvah. But we connect to this, and Hashem will shower us and our families all the berachot. B'ezrat Hashem. Next week I'm going to be out of town.